We got Brent Beard on the line. He covers SEC football and athletics across the board, Florida State, also with First Coast News. He's a college football analyst right there, and you can catch him as co-host of College Sports Today. So before we move on, Brent, let us know in regards to your two platforms right there, where we can find that and how long you've been at it.
Well, I've been writing since the early 90s. And have been doing sports radio since that time. Also here in Jacksonville, it's certainly a labor of love, but like everybody else, we're discovering the podcast. We're all discovering YouTube and things of that nature. I've been doing a Saturday morning show with Terry Norvell, who is well known around here, doing TV and radio, and we're going to be looking at doing a podcast on a regular basis. I've also got a Twitter feed at Brent Beard, Beaird. And I think one of the things that I've done for years since I've had the Twitter feed is just to be able to update several times during the day what's going on in college football and college basketball. The thing I'd like for folks to be able to do is go on that Twitter feed and just look at, I can't look everything up all the time. Give me some highlights about what's happened during the day. Because, as much as we love this stuff and as long as we've done it, we're still college football fans at heart. And the stuff that I want to see, I will be glad to put on there. And the amazing thing is, when I started in the business years ago, I could go to the library. I remember doing a Saturday morning show and starting this. And if we could get a Atlanta Constitution that was like a Tuesday edition for a Saturday show, we thought we had died and gone to heaven and struck gold. Now you got this stuff that's instantaneous on Twitter. And listen, as you know, the reality is if you're a college football fan and you're not on Twitter right now, you're losing out as far as just finding out what's going on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No question about that. Brent, even though we're going to focus on the SEC, you mentioned Florida State. Willie Taggart comes in after 1 year at Oregon. Of course, he knows the landscape there in Florida extremely well, but has yet to win at the Power 5 level, let alone with the expectations of a Florida State. But you give an interesting anecdote to him understanding what the past means and making that connection. Your thoughts about what Willie Taggart could possibly accomplish in the first year of his reign, but overall, considering that he got a late jump on things, but still brought in and closed with a good recruiting class.
I think the thing that Taggart has done so far that's been impressive, he has been very open to the fans, to the former players. They're going to retire Peter Warwick's number and honor him. And by the way, if we have some folks who don't know who that is, go back and Google him, because if you do, you'll spend half an hour looking at him and what he was able to do. We mentioned Bobby Bowden being there. Now, look, I like Jimbo Fisher, and I think he's going to do a good job at Texas A&M. But the reality is, as you know, that did not end well, did it? And Fisher really was isolated toward the end of his tenure there. And one of the things that Taggart's done, he has encouraged his staff to get out of the football building and go eat lunch where some of the other faculty eat, and just to meet those folks and get to know them a little bit. Taggart he reminds me kind of a Robert Schuller, Norman Vincent Peale, positive thinking guy. He ends a lot of his talks to the media, have a good day if you want to. I think that's pretty clever when you think about it. But he obviously has changed his staff. Now, Odell Higgins is still there, and which is a good deal. He's going to be going into their Hall of Fame, and he richly deserves it. He's been there several decades. Now, DeAndre Francois will be back. He hadn't done much during the spring. He got hurt, obviously, in the Alabama game, but is a really good quarterback. The Blackman kid who came in, who maybe was 160 pounds soaking wet.
I fear the kid's life.
Yes. Yeah, he needed a year, but didn't have it, did he? In order to get bigger and stronger. Now, when you've got Cam Akers in the backfield, you don't need a whole lot because you can give him the ball. Nooney Murray is going to be really good. They've got a Matthews kid at receiver who I think they really like. He didn't do a whole lot as a freshman because unless you're just incredible for whatever reason, particularly at receiver, Jimbo Fisher doesn't like to play freshmen. So he's going to get his chance at this point. Offensively, their biggest concern is their offensive line that really struggled. They've given up nearly 40 sacks in the last 2 years. I'll let you think about that number for a minute. That's just incredible for them, isn't it?
Exactly, Brent. That's one of the reasons why I would say to Blackman that although he shouldn't have played last year, he shouldn't have been too surprised that he played, because if you watch DeAndre Francois, what he was able to accomplish the season before and leading this team to an Orange Bowl win was pretty remarkable, getting off the deck time and time again as a freshman behind that offensive front.
Well, there's no question about that, and they made a needed change. Greg Fry is the offensive line coach now, and I've heard coaches say, and I've even heard Nick Saban say this, that after about a decade, kids start tuning you out and they quit listening. So they needed that.
Brent.
Yeah. If they can rebuild that offensive line, they will be very good. But look, as you know, what's happened to them is Clemson has become Alabama and Ohio State, and Miami now with Mark Richt and their recruiting, and Malik Rogers had a good year. Them at running back, they've got three of the better linebackers with this Shaq Quarterman kid that I've seen. So the reality is Florida State used to run roughshod over everybody, and because of the way the league's configured now, and Justin Fuente, who I love, that came from Memphis to Virginia Tech, they're going to be a powerhouse. So listen, this is a situation that Taggart knows this. They don't rule the ACC anymore, which for us is really gotten difficult to get used to. But that's the cycle of college football, is it not?
Yeah, they even have some pesky teams in their own division like NC State, really Louisville, and Wake Forest giving them problems. So Florida State certainly has some ground to make up, but of course they have the recruiting base exactly where you're sitting that supplies Miami, Florida, and Florida State, as well as about half the nation, it seems.